All right, I think we can go ahead and get this party started. Good day, everybody, and welcome to today's Discord campfire. Today's campfire is going to be a little bit less gameplay than we had last time, and we're going to be focused on much more of an in-depth peek behind the curtain. Everybody loves to see gameplay, and we know that, but we do also have a big part of our community who are also interested in seeing how the game is being made. So we want to make sure that we're giving out something to everybody with these events. And by the way, since people have asked, we will be giving out 200 points to everybody who attends. And you guys will see those points show up in the quest system on your accounts early next week. It's going to take us about a day or two to make sure we've got everybody's names processed, and then we'll make sure that everybody's got their points. So today we're going to be talking about how we develop the vital systems in Avalon, specifically systems around things like skills, leveling, and gear. Keep in mind that a lot of what you guys are going to see and hear today is still in active development. So things like the names and all the fun percentage points and math numbers and stuff like that are almost guaranteed to change. We're joined today by Scott Compton, who is our lead systems designer. And how are you doing today, Scott?
Doing great. I just got out of a play test with the other designers, so it's going great.
Excellent. Very glad to hear it. Scott, why don't you give us some background on yourself and give us a clue as to what a systems designer does?
Sure. So I'm decrepit and very old because I started playing RPGs in the late 1970s, playing D&D when it rolled out at that time as a youth. And then by the time I hit high school, I was going to Gen Cons and other conventions. And then I started dabbling into making my own RPGs because I wasn't satisfied with RPGs at the time in the mid-1980s. So eventually I pushed my way, and as a biologist, I pushed my way into systems and biology, not realizing it was a very good background to actually going into video game systems. So by the time I did some biology work, made some paper RPGs, actually had a small one published called Sword. Then I made my way down, thinking I was going to be doing biology down in Los Angeles, but it ended up turning into an interview at Squaresoft. I ended up working on battle systems as a battle systems designer on Parasite Eve, making like different weapon and armor system in that game, if anybody remembers it from the yesteryears. And then my career just blossomed for the last 30 years into other types of projects, a wide range of things, working on Tron, like Pixar's WALL-E, SpongeBob, Star Trek Online. Worked on actually one of the first MOBAs for consoles, which is called Guardians for Middle-earth, which is the Lord of the Rings franchise property. Then also worked at Monolith turned into WB Games, and I worked on Shadow of Mordor. So been doing a lot of work through the years into systems. It was interesting, I kind of made a transition from more of a lead designer into a systems role kind of about halfway through, kind of like in the WALL-E days in about 2007, and then really went hardcore into systems work from that time on. So you also asked, what do systems designers do? So what we do is, of course, we design the core mechanics of the game, like, of course, like fundamental rules about the interactions in the game, combat systems, skill systems, resources, crafting systems, everything that will drive gameplay and that will require gameplay balance. So really, like when we go into live environments, systems designers really focus on that, making sure the game's very balanced in a live setting. Of course, we're always looking to tune health, damage, rewards, all the challenges, all the hidden systems that are working behind the scenes, things like that. And then, of course, we're focusing on the progression, on how that all works through the entire progression of the game with leveling and gear systems and things like that. We're involved with economy systems. We're involved with enemy behavior and AI. We try to integrate all of these things in a cohesive way where it's making sense to all the players that are playing it, so it doesn't get convoluted to them, especially on the facing of the game. That's a very important thing that I've learned over the years, to ensure that players really feel like they're not intimidated. They like the game. They can come right into it. It's simplistic enough on the surface, but behind the scenes, it's exactly what they want. It's everything they've ever imagined for the complexity of how they can eventually evolve and progress into the game. And of course, then we kind of are also elaborate play testers and QA as well, because we're always looking for every little problem that could contribute to the game that we want to be constantly fixing and upgrading and making sure everything has a purpose and a place for where players are going to be wanting to spend their time, like after their work, and not like have to deal with too many bugs and stuff. So we try to catch all that too.
Right on. That seems like an exceptionally important job to have in game development, because I guess without the systems, it's just really a pretty looking mess. You got a lot of nice graphics, but nothing to hold it up. So let's get down to it, and we'll start out with talking about skills and stuff like that. So the first question that I would have is, when we're first thinking about the various systems that a game like Avalon needs, where and how do we come up with the ideas for things that will be vital to gameplay?
Yeah, that's a great question. Let me share my screen here and actually show people my Miro board a little bit. So what's interesting, that what we have to do is we have to take obviously the vision about like what the entire idea of the game you're working on. That's actually kind of the hardest part initially, is just wrapping your mind around what you're about to do and the kind of game you're going to work on. For Avalon, it's really unique because we have this idea. We want to like have constantly evolving progression to almost infinity. So like we have like different there's different properties out there, different things you can find online. For instance, like the versus wiki tier system, where you have a regular kind of like regular powered human, and then it moves and evolves to more of a superhero kind of character. Then it moves and evolves even beyond that, and you're starting to get into like demigods and like godlike creatures and characters. And the dilemma there for systems designers is, how do you develop a system that like allows that kind of flow to like an infinite amount of power? That's kind of where I landed coming into actually Avalon, thinking about how all these systems can evolve and work over time based on where you're currently at in the progression of Avalon. So that's really a cool thing that Avalon will eventually offer, that is unique, right, to most games, like have a start and a finish, and the progression kind of ends, and there's usually a stopping point.
Cool. So we got a couple people in chat saying that they can't see your screen. So why don't you try stopping your stream and then restart it, just to see if we can get everybody
see if that works. Yeah. Is anybody
seeing
it?
Worries.
Yeah, Discord.
Not right now. I think you stopped it. So
yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah, I'll try again here.
Oh, I'm still waiting for it to come up on my end. I can't see anything yet.
Okay. Well, that's not fun. Let's see.
Okay, so it's working for some people, but it's not working for others, and we don't know why, because it's not working for me, but that's okay. So for those of you guys that can't see it, hopefully our folks that are recording in the audience for us will be able to show that in the recording. You guys can watch back. It's not going to affect your points or anything like that, so don't worry about it. It is there. We promise that it is being recorded.
This definitely sounds like a systems bug, doesn't it?
It does sound like a systems bug.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to research this.
Right on. So next up, every game out there that runs in the RPG space, and obviously Avalon is going to be an MMORPG, has some kind of skill tree or skill web. How are we looking to approach that with Avalon?
Well, that's a great, awesome segue here. So yeah, I'm actually in part of my board here that's actually close to the skill stuff. So we want to start with obviously a very strong core skill system where there's lots of different approaches and different types of play styles and archetypes and ways that you can augment and feel autonomous over your particular avatar in the game. So we wanted to we first have a giant approach. Eventually we'll get to a place where we're gonna have all kinds of interlinking skills that evolve, that are potentially even hidden to the public until the public actually discovers them. And but first of all, like, when we introduce the game, we're going to introduce a lot of the core skill systems. I have kind of a part broken down here that it shows, a good number of skills here. There's about 50 some skills here, and how they're interlinked through the through the attribute structure of the game. So we have 5 main attributes in Avalon, and of these attributes are very telling of what skills are more likely to fall under them. So if you look like here in the vitality skills, you can see a breakdown of how you have different ways you can upgrade vitality itself, and then you can find general skills in vitality as well as specialty skills, and the qualities that are very common within these skills. So here you can see like 10 core skills, but these skills also rank up as well, so you can like build into them, and they also can have different synergies with even the weapon systems across the board here, depending on what type of archetype you want to play. The skills lend themselves toward particular kind of play styles, which is more straightforward. So like if you wanted to like level up like into, let's say, 2 of these 5 parts of the skill tree, then you'll start finding synergies and overlaps and things that will help out your gameplay. But if you want to focus in one initially and just kind of go all into, let's say, strength or finesse, you can obviously do that as well. And the real key there is, like I was saying earlier, is like balance, like finding the balance of how the skills work. And we carve out a certain section of what the skills mean for the game, like what percentage of your ultimate power will go into this, versus like how much power you'll actually pull in through your weapons and your gear and other augments in the game and abilities you find on gems, for instance, things like this. So there's a very well-rounded way where you can start finding all different kinds of synergies appearing even in the core part of the game. This is very rudimentary, but it's also like making sure that we're hitting all of our balance and progression by having like more of a set number of skills. And also for the facing to players out there in the environment that are playing Avalon, they'll also not be overwhelmed, and it's not going to be intimidating. They'll be able to see very clearly what they can get, what's locked out, how they can progress and unlock things, and just play into their play style that they're desiring to play into.
That's very cool. So the way that we're building this system from the ground up is going to very heavily influence how players are going to be able to customize their experience, is what we're saying.
That's right. Autonomy is very, very, very important to me. It's a fundamental pillar in design, as a matter of fact, where we want to make a system where you don't want to feel that the player has to go down one path or another path, that there's a viable path based on whatever they're choosing, and they can find different ways to augment that path and to double down on their path as they're expanding through Avalon.
All right.
So, yeah.
And you brought up player attributes, and I know a lot of, if not most, MMORPGs have a set of stats that may or may not have various bonuses tied to them. Your strength bonus makes you hit harder. Your vitality bonus makes you gives you more health, stuff like that. What's kind of our take on that?
Yeah. So there's a lot of there's a lot here. You can see like how we've like mapped out a lot of different qualities, like different statistics to the different attributes, and behind the scenes our formulas pull in these core attributes specifically for almost everything you're doing in the game. So when you start dumping points into finesse, for instance, which is like your agility and how well you're able to like do quicker actions like firing your bow, these sort of actions, then as you like dump as you push into finesse and make this stronger, it will have a ripple effect deep across the formulas in the game to just make everything in this area better for you, where you're going to be able to like do more headshot damage. You'll be able to like draw your bow back faster and fire faster. Things like this are more like I guess I would say immersive, where is like you don't have to think too much about it by sinking points in to that particular attribute, things just get better for you along those pathways that you know that are tied to the different abilities, weapons, and skills in the game. Like mind, you can see here, like it's increasing your elemental damage versus finesse. It's creating better projectile and headshot damage. Your nature's a whole other really cool path for Avalon, where we have what we're calling envoys and different summons in the game, where you can start to do different augments on those things that you summon in through your nature path, which is really cool. And then we have strength, of course, is more like a warrior-minded, types of skills there. But also there's other like poise and knockback, knockdowns, different types of melee things that happen through that skill tree and through just the whole formula system. And the same and then with vitality is more of like your stamina and your health and your toughness and lots of different resistances. So just in tandem, like because we've pulled it into these 5 categories. A lot of like RPGs, even RPGs I've written myself, sometimes have too many abilities. Like I wrote an RPG that had, for instance, 12 different abilities, and it really sectioned it out, but it worked well, but it's also more complicated on the surface. So we have really pulled this down into 5 main attributes. So it's very clear and clean, the pathways you can take, and then you can start over time interlacing and overlapping these. So you might, let's say, go down a mage path with your mind skills, but you might also think, I want to be a battle mage and I want to also do more hand-to-hand combat. So you start combining strength with mind, and then over time you start feeling the game unlock different types of new skills that were just not even they were not discovered, and you discover them, and now these new synergies appear in Avalon. So that's really a really cool long-term strategy for just continuously evolving the system and having the fundamental architecture and backbone in place, so then the game can completely expand endlessly into the future. Based on the core elements of it. I have over here, for people that can see the board, this is like an archetype iteration that I did a while back, which you can see different essences, thinking in terms of you are a player with your own core essence, and as you expand out, you can grab other types of essences, the essence of vitality and nature and finesse and these things, but also other types of things as well. But then as we've evolved this over time, it's gone through lots of iterations, and it kind of starts telling a story of where you're investing, what sub archetypes and what archetypes can come out of going down a direction. And this is actually only showing some of the archetypes. You can see here between the arcanist and the mystic is the mage archetype. But really, you can be evolving this in 3-dimensionality. It doesn't have to be 2D like this, where you can start combining the mage over here with the sharpshooter, and now you have a ranged mage kind of character, and other things unlock between, being like a ranger with a mystic. And that's where it gets really fun, interesting, and new for everyone, later on, where you're finding these new combinations. And to balance that, right, that's my primary task as a systems designer, to make sure that all this is crunching together, that the player doesn't end up finding that one path or a couple paths, and then everyone online shouts out, hey, go down this path, it will never fail you, it's always good for these situations. Well, I want to make everything good for every situation, and that's the goal here with systems, is to you finding your awesome thing that only you own, and you feel oh my god, there's only 2 other people in the entire world that went down this kind of path, that made this kind of synergy, and it works really well as an archetype and as a play style that I'm using with my friends in combat.
I think that kind of thing only works really well until the secret gets out. And, I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of build crafting videos that are going to be winding up going up on YouTube and stuff like that. So yeah. I wouldn't expect to see those people that are 2 people in the world have discovered this thing. I don't think that's going to last for very long. I think there's going to be tons.
There's a lot of copycat. I'm one of them. I like the copycat, a new things that people discover, and then like, okay, let's see if that works really well. And
Right.
how fun is that, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Well, and moving on, you also mentioned earlier on that this is also going to kind of interface with your gear.
Yeah.
You know, obviously gear always has stats and bonuses in basically every game out there. I mean, that's the whole point of getting new gear is you get better gear, you get better stats, you do better. So how is that going to work with our rarity system and stuff like that we're working on?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what we're doing is, we have the ability to have a primary and secondary weapon, and also the ability to eventually swap out between like a play style. Like in this situation, I want to use my sword, I'm like in the enemy's face, and then very quickly switch over to another set of gear and weapons and everything where you can actually, in the middle of combat and as you're playing, have a little bit of choice there very quickly. But knowing like your question is a very complex one. Like over here in my board, this is from a few months ago. I can show you some stuff here. So like you can see here's like a mythic bow and some different types of formulas that like feed into the mythic bow. As I was saying earlier, like, finesse matters here. So you can see like there's a finesse damage mod, then a max finesse, and things like this feed into the damage of the bow. The draw speed, the stamina cost every time you fire a bow. Hopefully you don't run out of stamina, that you never get low. As like a resource, right? Similar like on the same lines of like if you use a magic weapon, right? Everybody knows mana systems, and you overuse your weapon, you run out of mana before you can regen it. Stamina is doing that for a lot of these things in the game as well as a gate, but then there's really, you can mitigate that stamina cost in other ways, and also based on your gear that you choose can definitely mitigate that. Poise damage is a system that's very common in a lot of games like Elden Ring and other games that you're probably familiar with, where this, like in our system, we have the ability to inflict poise damage, and then when you inflict that, like there's a behind the scenes system that will let you know like how that particular entity or enemy will react to that poise damage, to see if they get knocked back, if they get knocked down, if they get stunned, this type of stuff. So that's built into a lot of the weapon systems here. And what's really cool is that we have, so talking about the actual, here, I'll show you this chart. Talking about our rarity system, we have like what's called like 8 tiers of rarity, and each tier of rarity also intersects with item levels in that rarity tier system. So you can get early game, like down here, if you see like an ultra or relic or mythic, a really high level rarity item, you can get that early game if you happen to find a like this chart's actually wrong. These should be actually extended all the way down. This has changed over time too. But you can actually get like potentially get a mythic or ultra item early game, like as a low item level. And there's different properties that exist on the item level versus the rarity tier. So for instance, on the rarity tier, allows you can see on this one here, this is a higher rarity. Yeah, this is glitched, which is like the ultra relic category here. There's 4 gem sockets available on this, which is based on the rarity of the item, where the item level itself, and this happens to be a very high level, this is 111th item level. Wow, it's like the Bilbo Baggins reference right there. There's this this high item level item also is bringing in different qualities, across the board, where it's pushing a lot of these base values up higher, as you can imagine. Where the rarity, like I wanted to like focus in on this, the rarity gives you different sockets, gives you extra sockets, but it also gives you bonus stats. So not in addition to these stats, you're seeing other stats that are available for a particular item, like a range can randomly roll onto the item. So you can get some really cool extra stats popping in on your items, so they become more interesting to you and more unique and more rare. So you want to like potentially find a weapon or an item or piece of gear or armor that will synergize with that type of playstyle you're looking for. And you might be like, oh wow, this particular piece of gear has a bunch of extra just bonus max strength goes up. And because you're trying to make a build that just in totally increasing your max strength, you're looking for these items that might give you more max strength, for instance. Or you might have something that will like, reduce your stamina cost, so then you're like super effective in combat and you really don't have to worry about like stamina loss too much. Or something else, the staff here could be, giving you bonus mana regen, or like just giving you max mana, and just everything you would expect from the RPG community, and all the MMOs out there, where you can augment and find things and then eventually craft these things as well up the chain. And if you gain different crafting skills, you'll be able to push those weighted values higher, potentially more than those that didn't go up that crafting tree, right? If they're still able to get the materials and the crafting stations and everything they need to craft their items, they will ultimately, the person that's gone down the skill tree to augment and master those specific skills, that can be done and have better chance of better quality, better item levels, better quality gear appearing over time. So
that's awesome.
There's definitely a really good crafting component to Avalon into the future, where you're going to have a lot of autonomy there to also find ways to make your things that you're looking for, as well as just going to a vendor and buying them, for instance.
That's awesome. So we're both making it very approachable for all varieties of players, but we're also kind of crafting a min-maxer's dream. That's really kind of a cool thing how we're playing both sides of the coin.
It is.
I like that.
And systems designers like are min-maxers just by default. Like if we're not, we're probably not doing our due diligence to be a systems person. But yeah, we love to min-max, and of course the min-max is super important for balance. And then finding like other ways where if a person really invests that time down a specific skill path, and they're like really saying, hey, I'm going all in on consumables and making different kinds of potions and things, and eventually that person will be making some of the best stuff in the game, and other people might go to that person to give them crafting components to help make consumables, and they might get a good deal there if they're giving items, or if they're if you're kind of like, you can find your own little niche, right? You can find your niche, and that's the cool thing, is that you don't have to do that, but then there will be people out there like me that love to min max that will be doing that just because people will be like, hey, is that guy online? Is he on the server? And I want to like maybe go talk with him and see what kind of cool stuff he has like crafted recently. So that's a super cool thing, right?
That's very cool. And so I had one last question that I was going to bring up before we wrap things up, because we don't want to keep people around all day. But it was actually just brought up by Broken Stoic in chat as well. Is there going to be any way to like evolve our weapons and gear and stuff like that outside of just adding augments and gems? Are we going to be able to, if I find that glitch staff super early in the game and I want to carry that with me, am I going to be forced to leave it behind, or am I going to be able to work that up?
That's a great question. There's been back and forth in design on this. I think ultimately we will land in the future to continue augmenting it up the line in item levels. There's definitely a point at which item levels are tied to materials. So like if you have a lower item, if you start with a low item level weapon, for instance, it might be like made of bronze or like even wood or stone, right? Initially. So the material of the weapon, like as you go through the game and you discover different biomes and you get different materials and you make, and you mint different like bars of things, there's all types of progression up the chain where you can take these particular metals or what you need that would increase the item level for you and then re-roll it and eventually even combine them together. So you might be able to take your glitched wooden sword and do a combination with it and say, I now have like this, maybe this mid-tier level 36 sword that's not glitched. It's maybe only, let's say, rare item rarity or epic item rarity. And I want to combine it together with my glitched sword that happens to be wood. We want to allow that. We want that to happen. We want you to then, based on your skills and based on what you can do, have the ability to combine these things. But when you combine them, there's kind of like, it's a little bit of Russian roulette, but it is based on your skill too that you have in this. The more you've mastered how to combine these things and how you've mastered how to craft them, this will help your chance of making this new item that still retains its relic rarity, but is now like a higher level because it's accepted the new material into it.
That's awesome. Well, that's a ton of information that you just gave to everybody, and I, for one, am certainly glad that we have talented experts like yourself to explain these things, because I think if I was trying to do this, my head would explode. So it's great to know that our team is taking such a thoughtful and methodical approach to making sure that every player at every level of Avalon is going to be able to have a worthwhile experience, whether they're, somebody that's just looking for casual gameplay, or if there's somebody that wants to really, do a super deep dive into stats and, make the best character they absolutely possibly can. So that's really, really cool. And Scott, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to share this wizardry with us. It's been phenomenal having you show this to the community, and we really do thank you a lot.
Yeah, look forward to next time. And awesome, there's so many people that showed up this time. Yeah, if, as we evolve this and as it pushes on, like the systems are just only going to get more interesting, and I'm super excited to be on this project. Like, love the team, love everyone.
Absolutely. And thanks again, Scott. And for everybody that's here, like I said, we are recording this. The recording will be available later on if you guys want to go back and review and take a second look at the stuff that Scott has put up. In addition to that, like I said at the top, we're going to be giving out 200 points in the quest system to everybody that showed up today. We have to get the list of everybody that was here, got to make sure that it's accurate, and then those points will be given out early next week. So thank you very much, everybody, for showing up today, and we'll be doing another campfire around this time next month. We're looking to do these on a monthly basis, so make sure you show up for that, and we'll have more information for you later. Take it easy, everybody. Have a great evening.